shine or to die. Merely two sides of the same coin. I promise you won't be disappointed. Let's prove our value to each other.
While many people enjoyed and played through Carlotta's story quest, one interesting thing they may have missed is the several references to art, literature, culture, and more within her character design and narratives. From the Impressionist art movement to Shakespeare, even to Haruki Murakami, Carlotta references a surprising amount of cultural material. Carlotta was a character which I've been eyeing for a while, as she has a very interesting worldview, especially when it comes to art, and has many mentions to small bits and pieces of culture. In fact, I was actually pleasantly surprised that the whole story was even a symbolic nod to a book I've actually studied, being Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveller. I actually enjoyed looking into Carlotta's symbolism and master various places, but without any further ado, just a quick warning that there will be spoilers for Carlotta's story quest if you haven't done it, and beyond that, let's get started. While many people know that two families dominate Renaissance society and politics, being the traditional Thessalians and the more progressive Montellis, what a lot don't know is that these two groups, as well as their rivalry and feud, are actually based on two real families within Renaissance Italy that is the inspiration of Rinascita as a region. In my Cantarella video, we discussed how the Thessalians are based on a real Spanish Borgia family, with Cantarella most likely being an analog of the Gratia Borgia. On the other hand, the mercantile and innovative Montelli family are based on the real Medici family. They were an Italian family that was based in Florence and drew their power primarily from banking, trade, art. When the Medicis were at the height of their power, they were very well known for the Medici Bank, the largest and most trustworthy bank in Europe at the time, that made the Medicis the wealthiest family on the continent. This actually mirrors the Montellis in one ways exactly, as the Montellis are not only the richest family in Rinascita, but manage the only major bank in the region, being the Averardo Bank and Vault. In fact, the name Averardo even comes from the Latin word avere, which means to be truthful and genuine, with the name being used for people who worked as merchants and bankers, which were occupations that required sincerity. This matches the real Medici Bank, which was seen as so trustworthy that they even managed the funds of the church and the papacy, being so reliable and trusted that the Medici family basically popularized the letter of credit, or as we know in modern times, the check. However, the parallels between the Medicis in real life and the Montellis in game don't stop at just banking and finance. The Medicis, being loaded with cash, were massive patrons of the arts, being one of the single biggest contributors to the thriving artistic movement of the Renaissance. You may know of artists such as Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Botticelli, maybe even Donatello, but perhaps not that the Medici family bankrolled all of their careers. The Medici family were massive patrons of the arts, and this greatly reflects within Wuthering Montelli family, who not only buy up and store art and valuables within the Averardo Vault, but also sponsor and support cultural events, such as Raguna's Carnival, which they've been pushing for despite the resistance from the Thessalia family and the Order. Carlotta herself, like her family, has quite a refined taste in art, something that we'll be exploring quite a bit in the next chapter. Beyond this, it may not surprise you that the Montellis, like their real-life counterparts, the Medicis, both made their fortunes through trade. The Montellis in-game are presented as innovative, aggressive merchants that advocate for new technologies such as terminals and trading with the outside world, as they want to open up Rinascita to the international community, compared to the Thessalians, who are insular and want to close Renacita to outsiders. It is with this family rivalry and background out of the way, however, that we can now start analyzing the more personal symbolism and references that underpin Carlotta's story. Sorry. One of the fundamental points that defines Carlotta's character, which may seem unbefitting of her role as an executioner, but more so one as a Montelli, is her taste in art. Throughout the character stories, Carlotta is well known for supporting lesser-known art, being a trendsetter that recognizes talent where other people do not. Her hobby voice line puts this into perspective.
The beauty of art shouldn't be confined by a viewer's knowledge or taste. Whether it's the latest trends, timeless classics, or avant-garde surrealism, each offers a unique vantage point. What I truly admire is the emotion and passion artists pour into their work.
From this we can see that Carlotta values the more abstract and symbolic meaning of art rather than the surface interpretation or what necessarily other people think. As such, a lot of artistic terminology is used within her story. The voice line we just mentioned, for example, talks about avant-garde surrealism. The combination of two terms, it shows how Carlotta not only has an abstract taste, but also doesn't simply follow what other people think in regards to art. In this vein, another similar but very important art movement that is mentioned in Carlotta's story from the artist Pasolini and his work, Glory and Decay. The reference to Impressionism is an artistic style that emphasizes emotion and feeling that was connoted with a fleeting, momentary scene, an impression, if you will, as opposed to previous movements during the time, such as Romanticism, that focus on a surface-level beauty within realistic depictions. With the gift of hindsight, we actually now know that this is not the only time that Kuro has referenced Impressionism, as Monet's name, especially in Chinese, is a reference to Claude Monet, one of the, if not the most famous artists within the Impressionist movement. However, beyond being an art style that Carlotta likes, what's more interesting is that Carlotta's character and story is really framed around what Impressionism idealizes. For example, Pasolini's Impressionist painting, which represents two opposing forces on the verge of collision, is really an allegory for Carlotta's life with her two opposing sides and ideals, her role as an executioner, her desire for recognition, the pressures of being a Montelli, while not truly being a blood relative of the family. Carlotta's characterization is one that is defined by contradictory ideals. This idea is even confirmed by Francesco, Carlotta's grandfather himself, when he comments on the same painting, saying that Carlotta is like a small piece trapped within the confines of a bigger frame, highlighting just how important an Impressionist perspective is to understanding Carlotta's character. In addition to this, Carlotta also references the more technical components of artistic Impressionism. For example, just like how light and crystals are a huge motif of Carlotta's combat and story, Impressionism is very focused on light and shadow, as well as crystallizing a single moment, an impression, upon the audience. Carlotta's resin skill, chromatic splendor, is a reference to Impressionist color theory, as Impressionism was one of the first movements in history to use high chroma, vibrant colors in order to capture the moving effects that light on surfaces. Further, Carlotta's inherent skill, ars gratia artis, Latin for art for art's sake, was a saying that a lot of Impressionist artists ran with, as the entire movement was avant-garde, a rejection of the artistic standards that had been imposed on artists during these times. Impressionism was not about just impressing people with realistic depictions and grandeur, but more so, as Carlotta says, to reflect the emotion and passion that an artist possesses for their work. Even the name of the quest, On a Rainy Day a Family, had links to Impressionism, as artists like Claude Monet were obsessed with expressing weather and atmosphere in their paintings, oftentimes painting the same scene in different light and weather conditions. However, the name of Carlotta's story mission has a bigger reference behind it, something that we'll cover in the next chapter. Upon first inspection, it would be very understandable if you looked at the name of Carlotta's story mission, If on a Rainy Night in Family, and think, wait a minute, that's not grammatically correct. Is this perhaps a translation or localization error? No. Actually, it's a reference to a very famous postmodern work called If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller by the Italian author Italo Calvino. Besides the obvious notion that Carlotta and the Montellis are inspired by the Italian Renaissance, Calvino's work inspires actually the entire story mission, and in extension, Carlotta's character even beyond that. Calvino's story, being postmodernist, is a bit of an interesting one. Unlike normal stories, If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller is a story about storytelling itself, taking on the perspective of not a character, but you, the reader itself. Let me read you the famous first lines of the story to express and tell you what exactly I mean. You are about to begin reading Italo Calvino's new novel, If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller. Relax, concentrate, dispel every other thought, let the world around you fade. As you can see, Calvino's book is a story about you, the reader. The story is really just a collection of stories with you, a character within, trying to find endings to them to no avail. Every time the protagonist, you, buys a new book to read within the story, you only read the first chapter before the text cuts off. As we said before, Calvino's work is metafiction. The book is a story about the act of reading stories itself. You may be asking, why did Calvino write a story like this then? Ironically, Calvino's purpose in writing his work is veiled within the question itself. He wants you to think about why you read books. What place do you have in the stories you experience? And within If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller, Calvino doesn't give you a concrete ending. Instead, he wants you, a character within the story, to imagine and find the ending for yourself. Calvino's story, being a fragmented collage of unfinished various stories and scenes, is actually the exact same structure in a way as Carlotta's own story mission, If on a Rainy Night, Family. Carlotta's mission is a collage of chasing clues in itself. It's made up of disconnected flashbacks, investigation leads, and chapters of the past of the Montellis that are all unfinished scenes that, just like Calvino's novel, never really reach a conclusion. This all reaches a head as Italo traps Carlotta within a sonorous sphere, built from memories, experiences, even passing thoughts, just like Calvino's novel itself. This is where Carlotta confronts her mirror self, the version of her that yearns for attention and recognition. This alter ego, created from the depths of her own memories, desires, and fantasies, offers Carlotta another path within the story, one where recognition, praise, and glory is hers for the taking. This approach, a story with multiple paths, where the reader is trapped as a character within the story they are reading, mirrors the structure of Calvino's novel. As Carlotta wanders the tale of her past, he literally asks whether she is actually trapped in a simulation. In the end, however, Carlotta rejects this fabrication, seeking her own ending. And what did we say before was the purpose of Calvino's story? It's a story that lacks an ending, because the ending is something that the reader must seek with their own hands, for themselves. Just like If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller, Carlotta's story is about breaking out. She is both the reader and the writer, escapes the story that has confined her. After the end of Carlotta's story, she invites you for a drink as a sort of post-quest activity after becoming the next head of the family, giving you the recipe for Opal, a sort of secret communication trick to get in touch with the Montelli family. The achievement you get after completing this little scene, Italo Language's Cocktail, is a reference to famous Japanese author Haruki Murakami. This wouldn't be the first time a Kuro has referenced Murakami, after all, as one of Chacona's residence chains is also based on one of his works. While any literature student may know Murakami as an author of books talking about life, mental illness, and what a lot of people may not know is that he used to be the owner of a jazz bar, which is where a lot of the aforementioned achievement takes inspiration from. If our language is whiskey, the reference behind Carlotta's achievement is a quote from and the title of an essay collection of the same name. Within this, Murakami describes how if words were whiskey, then handing someone a drink would be the absolute perfect form of talking. It would be simple, intimate, and accurate, in a way that spoken words often could not be.
In Raguna's market, they say fortune seldom favors those who lack a taste for fine drinks. Among traders, there's a secret code in the way drinks are mixed. A base of bitter almond and mint, for instance, usually signals danger and death. But some have devised their own, more private codes.
Sometimes, perfect communication is not verbal. It comprises of an unspoken connection built on trust and understanding. The monologue that plays before he gets his achievement summarizes this perfectly. You understand her unspoken message. Some questions aren't meant to be answered right away. Without exchanging another word, you hold each other's gaze. As we discussed previously within our chapter about Impressionism, Carlotta is a character who tends to favor abstraction, subtext, and symbolism. Communication is a multi-layered and complicated affair, and as such, the final recipe she shares with you, the drink Opal, also correlates with this. Comprised of white rum, rose nectar, pomegranate juice, black pepper, and spicularia powder, each of these ingredients can symbolize many different things. Going solely off of my understanding, the white rum may symbolize washing away the past, as one of Carlotta's residence chains is named "Yesterday's raindrops make the finest wine." Rose nectar may be symbolic of beauty and love, since it has been said that Cupid, the son of Venus, created roses after spilling a vase filled with sweet nectar, leaving roses where they touch the earth. Pomegranate juice may be symbolic of life, death, and rebirth, something that occurs throughout Carlotta's story as she finds her an ending, so to speak. The reason for this, from my own understanding, is that it ties into the symbolism of pomegranates in the myth of Persephone and Hades, where Persephone ate a pomegranate in the underworld, thus forcing her to visit Hades every year and creating the cycle of winter and spring, of life and death. For the symbolism of black pepper, I don't really have much of a clue. I think perhaps it may be that it adds a little bit of a kick to the drink, linking to Carlotta's role as an executioner within the family, kind of like how violence has a place within elegance or whatnot. Fritillaria powder may symbolize resilience and being graceful in adversity, as the Fritillaria flower's dripping bulbs always tends to connote some kind of sorrow and trouble, with Carlotta in the story, of course, overcoming trouble with elegance. The Opal cocktail overall, though, is really just Murakami's idea made manifest. Sometimes, messages aren't conveyed in words. Connections can run deeper than that. One of Carlotta's residence chains naturally even makes reference to this. The toast to the past, today, and every day, If you've gotten this far, thank you very much for watching the video. Hopefully, you've learned something, enhanced your understanding of the story a little, and if you've enjoyed the video, consider subscribing or even supporting me with a donation in comments, or maybe becoming a channel member for more content like this. As always, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you all in the next video.